Hello everyone and welcome to a new video on the channel. As mentioned in, as mentioned in my last video, I've just recorded a video where I mentioned that I'd be recording this video afterwards. But now thinking about it, you're not going to know until you've seen this video. So don't worry about it because this video will be going out tomorrow, Tuesday, recording this Monday. And obviously last night we had the Oscars. Anora won the big ones, which I was very happy with because it was my favourite film of last year, so I thought that it did deserve to win all the awards that it did. So yeah, a good year this year, whereas last year I wasn't too impressed with the big winners because I think I just wasn't that impressed with the big film that won last year, but we'll get to that in a bit anyway. But I'm just going to go through in this video all of the films that have won Best Picture that I own in my collection. There are a few that I actually haven't seen yet, including this first one here, which is probably a big one for most. But I thought I'd go through, give my thoughts on the ones I've seen, and then you can let me know what ones I've got missing that you think that I should have in the collection, because I'm sure there are still quite a few. There are a few, well I say a few, there's Coda, which obviously won Best Picture in 2021, or was it 22? That doesn't have a physical release, which is a bummer. Obviously Anora's not out yet, so that's out in May. I've got that on pre-order, but I shall be getting that one. But anyway, I'll stop babbling on and I'll get on with it because there's quite a few to go through. This will probably be a longer video because I've got 3 piles here, all of Best Picture winners. So we're going to get cracking on with I think this is 1939? Yeah, 1939's Gone with the Wind, starring, why is my mind blanking? It's Clark Gable, Vivian Leigh, Leslie Howard, and Olivia de Havilland, who was actually in the film I watched last night. And yeah, I've not actually seen this one yet. I don't know why. I've heard it's a fantastic film of its time. Obviously, it's very old now. 85? Yeah, 86, because this was 2014, this Blu-ray. It's 86 years old. Yeah, 233 minutes. That's probably the main reason I haven't delved into it yet, because of its length, but it's one that I will get into soon, because as I said, I've heard fabulous things about it. Then from, I think this was 1943, we have Casablanca with the great Humphrey Bogart. You've got Ingrid Bergman and Paul Heinrich, Peter Lorre as well, Sidney Greenstreet. And I saw this one at the cinema for its 80th anniversary re-release, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was the first time I'd seen it, hence this still being in plastic. I've not gone back to it yet, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thought it was a classic film. Humphrey Bogart's great. It was actually, I think, the first Humphrey Bogart film I watched. And it's just an excellent film. It won 3 Oscars, as it says at the bottom, and yet well worth the watch. Next up, we're skipping to the 50s, and we have winner of 8 Academy Awards, one that's fairly recent watch for me. Jumping 10 years into the future to 1953, we have From Here to Eternity, another great film. I suppose this is a war film of sorts. It's set, where is it set? I forget. Is it in Hawaii? I think it's in Hawaii, isn't it? Well, about Pearl Harbor, isn't it, I suppose. 1941, you've got Montgomery Clift, Burt Lancaster, Deborah Kerr, Donna Reed, Frank Sinatra, and it's a brilliant film. It's got a love story at the centre of it. Brilliant film. Everyone in this is fantastic. This basically was the film that introduced me to Burt Lancaster. I didn't think I'd seen anything, well, other than Field of Dreams, but obviously he was much older in that. But it's a fabulous film if you've not seen it. Well worth the watch, and a great war film, From Here to Eternity. Next up, another one I've not seen, jump into the 60s, winner of Best Picture of 1961. We have West Side Story. Now, I've seen the remake of this, and I love the remake. One of my favourite modern musicals. Newer music, it's not modern, is it? You know what I mean. Fantastic film. That is purely the reason I've not got round to this yet, because I know this is going to be a great film, But I'm now going to be going against a new film, judging this film against a new film, whereas it should have probably, in hindsight, been the other way around, and I should have watched this first. I think I did own this before I saw the new film, so this should have really been watched before that. But I will watch this. You've got Natalie Wood, you've got George Chakiris, Russ Tamblyn, Rita Moreno, who's also in the new one. So yeah, I'm looking forward to giving that a go at some point. Next up, a stone cold classic, winner of Best Picture the following year, 1962. We have Lawrence of Arabia, one of the best films ever made, a fantastic film. Peter O'Toole's amazing, Alec Guinness, Omar Sharif. Yeah, Jack Hawkins, Anthony Quinn, Jose Ferrer, Anthony Quayle. Just the cast goes on and on. It's a David Lean film. It won, as you can say, 7 Academy Awards. It is the very definition of an epic. I believe it's Steven Spielberg's favourite film as well. It's what inspired him to become a director. It's a sweeping epic. It is 4 hours long. Flies by. I absolutely adore this film. Beautifully shot. Brilliant film. I'd love to get the 4K of this, but it's only available on the Steelbook, and I don't do Steelbooks. It is a Steelbook I would make an exception to, but it's just too expensive for me. So I really wish that one day we will get the 4K release of this, because I'm sure it'll just be elevated and just look spectacular. So yep, great film, Lawrence of Arabia. Next up from, I think this is 65. Yeah, 65, we have Rodgers and Hammerstein's The Sound of Music. One of my favourite musicals. I know Stuart's not a fan of this, but I think because I grew up on this film, I've watched it so many times. I love the songs, I love the story. It's a war film technically, but it's more than that, a musical and a love story. And I love it. I've seen a documentary, I've seen all the special features. It's a film I fell in love with as a child, and I still love it now as an adult. Brilliant, beautiful film. Yep, very happy this one is in the collection. That is The Sound of Music. Another musical next. This one Best Picture in 1968, and that is, or is it 1968, that's correct. Oliver, My Namesake, won again. I watched quite a lot as a child, but I've not actually seen this for a long time. Very much due a rewatch, because it's been such a long time I can't remember too much about it other than the big parts. But yeah, Oliver Reed as Bill Sikes, one of the great movie villains. You got Ron Moody as Fagin, Harry Seacombe as Mr. Bumble. Obviously Mark Lester played Oliver, and yeah, I just remember it being a wonderful film, a great musical. So one that I must definitely go back to soon. Next up, following year, Best Picture winner of 1969, and just a stone cold classic, we have Midnight Cowboy with the great Dustin Hoffman and Jon Voight. Really hard hitting, quite controversial film at the time. From what I remember, it was the only X-rated film to ever win an Oscar, which nowadays would be an 18, which this is obviously rated. The subject matter in this is quite hard to watch. It deals with drug abuse. It deals with prostitution. For the time that this film was made, very much ahead of its time. Very hard-hitting themes in this film, but at the centre of the all-time best performances from the great Dustin Hoffman and Jon Voight. These are seriously two of the best performances in film history, in my opinion. As a film, it's also a brilliantly written film, brilliantly directed film by John Schlesinger, who was a fantastic director. You got the brilliant song, Everybody's Talking, which everybody probably has heard of now. Music by John Barry, who was an excellent composer, and it's just a brilliant film that definitely deserved to win Best Picture. That is Midnight Cowboy. Then jumping into the 70s in a film I briefly touched on in my weekly watches last week. Not one I watched last week, but I did watch the sequel, and that is 1971's The French Connection with the late, great Gene Hackman. Talking about some of the all-time best performances, Gene Hackman definitely applies with his performance in The French Connection. One of the best performances in cinema, one of the best car chases in cinema. Popeye Doyle is one of the most iconic characters in cinema, in my opinion. You've got Roy Scheider in there as well, who's excellent. All about this cop trying to uncover the truth, trying to bust basically a drugs ring. It's based on a true story as well, and it is incredible. It's got some iconic scenes, some iconic visuals. As I said, the chase scene is brilliant. Fantastic thriller, fantastic film in general. William Friedkin, what a director. We have The French Connection. Next up, one that I only watched for the first time last year, and this was one of my grandpa's favourite films, so I had to give this a watch finally, and it's excellent. It is from 1973, so the 2 years later, you have the great Paul Newman, the fantastic Robert Redford, in The Sting. What a film. About two con men in the 1930s in Chicago. One of their friends is killed by the mob, and they try and pull off what they brand as the ultimate sting, hence the title. There's twists, there's turns, there's double crosses. It's iconic. Their performances are iconic. It's got a fantastic score. You've got Scott Joplin's music played throughout. Obviously, you know the instant this film starts, the music plays. It's in your head forever. It's a fantastic film. Brilliantly directed. You've got the great Robert Shaw in this as well. Yeah, you've got The Sting. Next up, one that I'm not going to praise as much, and technically this first one comes before The Sting, but after The French Connection. It was winner of Best Picture in 1972, and that is The Godfather. So I'm going to talk about both The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2. As films themselves, brilliantly made films, really well directed, some great characters in there. But for me personally, I just didn't connect with the stories in either of these films. I thought they were too long. It dragged for me personally. I've talked about this before, so I'm not going to go on in detail. But as films themselves, groundbreaking for the time. Really made a stamp in history, really did something. I know there's a mini-series on Paramount Plus called The Offer, which is all about the making of The Godfather. I believe Miles Teller stars in that one. Would still be an interesting one to watch for me, but yeah, wasn't hugely big on these films, but I can appreciate that they are massive pieces of cinema history and very iconic films, and ones that I will try and watch again in the future, and I hope I appreciate them more then. That's The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2. Next up, late 70s one, this one, from, actually it's mid-70s, I thought it was later than that, from 1975, with one of his best performances of his career, although he gave many great performances. We have the great Jack Nicholson in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, a Milos Forman film, a brilliant film, again, very hard-hitting, very ahead of its time. Jack Nicholson in a psychiatric unit with the likes of Danny DeVito. You've got Christopher Lloyd in here. What is the Native American man's name? Is it William Redfield? I don't know, it's not actually saying on here. Oh, Brad Dourif in this film gives one of the all-time great performances. Fantastic performance. His performance, it just leaves you weeping at the end. And obviously the brilliant Louise Fletcher as Nurse Ratched, who's just horrible. The way that she treats these characters who are mentally ill. And back in this time, people were just treated so differently than today. And it's just such a great piece of cinema history, just like a time capsule of a film in a way. And as I said, Jack Nicholson gives one of the best performances of his career. And he gave so many brilliant performances, including one that will be further along in this list, which unfortunately I don't think he won, or maybe he did win an Oscar, I can't remember now. But that is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Next up, from 1976, the start of a fantastic franchise, if you do ask me. My favourite being the fourth one. We have Rocky with the great Sylvester Stallone. I say great. He was great in the Rocky films. I really enjoyed the Rambo films. Outside of that, more of an action star, not a particularly great actor, but in these Rocky films he really showed he could act, including the first Rocky film, which obviously was the one that won Best Picture. It's kind of the film that put him on the map. You've got Talia Shire, who'd obviously before this been known for the Godfather films, being, I think, is she the daughter of Francis Ford Coppola? Or no, she's not. She's his sister. Why did I think she was his? She's his sister, isn't she? That's right. Obviously playing Adrian. You've got Paulie, played by the great Burt Young. You've got Mickey in this. Who played Mickey? Why am I forgetting who played Mickey? He was a great actor. I don't know if it's going to say he was in Grumpy Old Men as well, which I love as well. Great film. I would say Burgess Meredith. It came to me before I looked at the back. Burgess Meredith, great in Rocky. And yeah, just a great underdog story. Rooting for him all the way through. The fight scene at the end. One of the best boxing films of all time, you could say. And again, another great piece of cinema history. You have Rocky. Next up, probably my favourite Robert De Niro film and performance. Probably also my favourite Christopher Walken performance. Just a fantastic film that's 3 hours, but holds my attention every time. It won Best Picture in 1978 or 1979. The Deer Hunter. Brilliant film, as I said, and you've got Meryl Streep in one of her first films, who gives a fantastic performance with her late husband John Cazale. This was his final film because he did unfortunately succumb, I think it was to cancer, just before this came out. Really sad because he was a fantastic actor, obviously known for the Godfather films, Dog Day Afternoon, which I love, The Conversation, which I've not seen yet but I must watch. But The Deer Hunter, about a group of friends who basically, one of them gets married. The first hour, I suppose, is at a wedding, but it's about the characters and the dialogue, and it builds, and it's great. And they then go to war in Vietnam, and it's what happens to them, what they go through psychologically, what they're like when they come back from war. And it's just a brilliant film. Christopher Walken, as I said, the highlight of this film, gives one of the best performances ever. Will leave you really shocked and sad in places. This scene has you on the edge of your seat, the Russian roulette scene. Yeah, an incredible film, The Deer Hunter. Then 1979, another Meryl Streep one. We have Kramer versus Kramer, obviously Dustin Hoffman as well. One I've only seen the once, but it left a big impact on me. Because my parents divorced at a young age, so I know what it feels like, this sort of thing. It's very hard on the children, just as much as it is on the adults. And it's just a really well-made film. Yeah, the performances in this are outstanding. I think, did Meryl Streep win an Oscar for this? I think she did. Yep, and Dustin Hoffman. But yeah, brilliant film. Well worth the watch. Kramer versus Kramer. Next up, one I can't talk about too much because I've not actually seen it yet. This is the German release, but I got it because it was Best Picture winner and I've heard it was great. It's a Robert Redford directed film and it's called Ordinary People. And as you can see, it stars the great Donald Sutherland. You've got Mary Tyler Moore and Timothy Hutton. And I think it's about a family in the 80s. That's all I know. I can see Judd Hirsch is in this one as well. As I said, directed by Robert Redford. Let me know what this is about, if you've seen it, what it's like. Yeah, 1980, Ordinary People. Then carrying on through the 80s, we're almost halfway through, I'd say. Bear with me, thanks for sticking with me this long. We have Best Picture in 1981, Chariots of Fire. Now, if you've saw me review this, I wasn't the biggest fan of this one. I thought the performances were good. I thought the story itself was interesting, but for some reason it just didn't click with me. The ending I did like. I really liked the ending at the Olympics, but everything leading up to that, I just wasn't engaged with. I do think I need to give this a rewatch in the future. But yep, I can appreciate that it's a very well-made film. That's Chariots of Fire. Next up, 1982's Best Picture winner, Gandhi, a Richard Attenborough film, obviously portrayed by the great Ben Kingsley, Sir Ben Kingsley, shall I say. You've got the likes of Candice Bergen, Edward Fox, the great John Gielgud, Trevor Howard, John Mills, Martin Sheen, just a stellar cast, all about the life of Mahatma Gandhi, who fought for independence in India all through his life, and it does cover all of his life, and it's a brilliantly well made film. It is 3 hours, but if you're interested in it, it flies by and is a cracking watch. That's Gandhi. Next up, one of my favourite and one of the most heartbreaking films ever made. Stuart will agree with me on this one. It was on his list. We have 1983 Best Picture winner, Terms of Endearment, starring, again, a fantastic Oscar-winning performance from the great Jack Nicholson. You've got Shirley MacLaine, you've got Deborah Winger, you've got Danny DeVito, you've got John Lithgow, you've got Jeff Daniels, just some fantastic actors in a film written and directed by the great James L. Brooks, who went on to get Jack Nicholson his third Oscar in As Good As It Gets. Brilliant film about a mother and a daughter and their relationship. Very heartwarming, very heartbreaking as well, but very, very well made. Terms of Endearment. Next up, I believe this is 1985, if I remember rightly. What came out then, I think. I don't know if that's the year it won the Oscar. Yeah, 1985's Out of Africa, a Sidney Pollack film, starring Robert Redford, Meryl Streep. What did it win Oscar for? It obviously won Best Picture, Best Art Direction, Set Decoration, Cinematography, Director, Music, Score, Sound, Writing. Won quite a lot of the big ones then. And it's a breathtaking film, obviously set in Africa in the early 1900s, about a, I think she's Austrian, if I remember rightly, woman, who comes over with her husband, and they run a coffee plantation, but she then falls in love with Robert Redford's character, who's a hunter. And yeah, really good film, really well made. Again, a long one, almost 3 hours long, but if you enjoy it, it will fly by. Next up, 1986 Best Picture winner, and a war film, and a brilliant war film. In fact, I believe this is Stuart's favourite war film. It's a fantastic film. It's an Oliver Stone film. It's Platoon. Brilliant war film, this one. Brutal, just very realistic of what you can imagine it was like for these young men going into a war. They volunteered. They really didn't know what was going to happen, and it ruined a lot of their lives because they couldn't live with the choices that they made. It just really messed with their heads coming back. You've got great performances in this from Tom Berenger, Willem Dafoe, Charlie Sheen, Johnny Depp. Yeah, just really, really shows the horrors of war, specifically obviously the Vietnam War, and is very well done. Platoon. Best Picture winner of, is this 88? Yeah, 1988, another Dustin Hoffman one. We have Rain Man, also starring Tom Cruise, and again, what I consider one of his better performances. Obviously, he's more of an action star, but he can act, and he shows it in this film, about Charlie Babbitt, who has to go and look after his autistic brother, played by Dustin Hoffman, called Raymond, and they go on a road trip, and on this road trip they start bonding with each other, and it's just a brilliant film. Dustin Hoffman, again, one of the all-time best performances. He gave, I think, and I know why Jodie loves him so much, because in his films, and I've just spoken about, how many have I spoken about now? 3 films where he's been in a film that's won Best Picture, and in all three of them, I think, he won Best Actor as well. Or I think it might have been Best Supporting Actor in Midnight Cowboy. And all three performances are some of the best performances in cinematic history, in my opinion. He's one of the greatest actors of all time, in my opinion. Just the way he conveys his characters on the screen, including this, just incredible filmmaking, incredible performances. Rain Man. Next up, we're jumping to 1990, winner of Best Picture, a Kevin Costner film. We have Dances with Wolves, one that I watched for the first time last year, and I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Kevin Costner's great. You've got Graham Greene, who's great, Mary McDonnell. All about this soldier in the 1860s that's assigned to this post. He meets the nearby Indian tribe, who are a bit apprehensive to who he is, not violent or anything, but he comes to learn of their culture, of their ways, and slowly becomes one of them. And it's a beautifully made film. The score again, I think it's John Barry again, isn't it? Yeah, John Barry. Brilliant, beautifully directed, beautifully shot. Another fantastic film, Dances with Wolves. Then the following year, 1991, we have Silence of the Lambs. Fantastic film, directed by Jonathan Demme, winning Anthony Hopkins' first Oscar, winning Jodie Foster did she win an Oscar for The Accused? She might have done, I can't remember, but she won an Oscar for this, for definite. It won Best Picture, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay as well. And it's weird because it's more of a horror film, and this is one of the very rare occasions where horror has been recognised for awards, for big awards. We got very close this year with The Substance, but unfortunately it was snubbed at the Oscars for the big awards, unfortunately. But Hannibal Lecter, one of the most iconic characters in cinema history, and that's partly because of Anthony Hopkins' incredible performance. Brilliant psychological thriller, some chilling scenes, some great dialogue in this, The Silence of the Lambs. Next up, from 1993, I think? No, 92. Again, won 4 Oscars and stars some of the best actors of all time, of their generation. We have Unforgiven, Clint Eastwood, Morgan Freeman, the late great Gene Hackman, and Richard Harris. A Story of Revenge. Obviously, Clint Eastwood and Morgan Freeman play retired outlaws. They go in to collect a bounty for one last time. Something happens, and Clint Eastwood has to get revenge, and it is brutal. It's brilliant. It's again beautiful at times, and it's probably the best Clint Eastwood film in my opinion. It's either this or Gran Torino for me. Brilliant film, and a fantastic western. Next up, this was 1993. One again I only watched for the first time last year, but it's a bloody brilliant film. We have Schindler's List. Liam Neeson in this, incredible. Ralph Fiennes, incredible. It also obviously won Best Director for Steven Spielberg. Believe the first time he won Best Director. Has he won since then? Trying to remember. I don't know if he's won. I think maybe he's only won for this, or maybe I'm blanking on something big. Very possible there. But yeah, Schindler's List, brilliant film that should be watched at least once in everybody's life. Just to educate yourselves, really. Not hide the history, to know what happened in history, to learn from it, and to hope that we don't make this mistake again. As a world, not as like a country, just as a world, treating each other the way we should be treated. Schindler's List. Next up, I'm going to go very quickly over this one, because if you counted up the amount of minutes over the time I've been doing my channel that I've talked about this film, you could probably fit the length of the film in there. We have 1994's winner of Best Picture, Forrest Gump, my favourite film of all time. Tom Hanks is excellent. Robert Zemeckis directed the shit out of this, if I do say so myself. Yeah, beautiful film. Incredible film, in fact. Forrest Gump. Next up, 1996, I think. Yeah, 1996. The English Patient, Ralph Fiennes, Juliette Binoche, Willem Dafoe, Kristen Scott Thomas, and another beautiful film. It's an Anthony Minghella film. It's basically, imagine Casablanca and Dr. Zhivago. It's like that. It's that scale, that big of an epic. It's a brilliant film. It's about a burnt pilot basically telling the story of how he met this woman, to this nurse, because they don't know who he is. He's only identified as the English Patient. And yeah, just a brilliant, really well made film, The English Patient. Next up, I think this is my second favourite film of all time. Again, deservingly so. I've not seen the 4K disc of this yet, but I did get to see the 4K 3D version of it on its anniversary release a few years ago, and I was blown away. That is Titanic. Brilliant film. Unfortunately, the slipcover is damaged because of the way it was being stored. I have moved it now. Yeah, what can you say about Titanic? One of the best love stories ever put to screen. Again, an educational watch, although it is fictional. The story itself, the characters within, there are some real people portrayed in this, including what's her name? Kathy Bates' character, is it Molly? Unsinkable Molly Brown, is it? She was called. She was a real person who was actually poor, and she became rich and obviously got onto the Titanic, and I think she survived. Yeah, this has got a few documentaries on here, which I will be watching, over 15 hours of special features. So yeah, I'll really dig that. So yeah, Titanic. Next up, we have 1998, Shakespeare in Love. One, again, I only watched fairly recently, but I loved this film. Gwyneth Paltrow, Joseph Fiennes, Judi Dench, who's only in it for about 5 minutes and won an Oscar. Geoffrey Rush, Ben Affleck, Colin Firth, Simon Callow, Jim Carter, Martin Clunes, Melda Staunton, Tom Wilkinson, Mark Williams. Just a great British cast. All about a young William Shakespeare, or Will as he's called in this. He's trying to write a play. It's not going anywhere. He's suffering from writer's block. And then he meets Gwyneth Paltrow's character, who's a lady. And it's about, obviously, society and not being able to mix in society, I suppose. It's really heartwarming, really funny as well, and a great British film, Shakespeare in Love. 1999 now, and we're on to American Beauty, a fantastic film. Kevin Spacey, Annette Bening, you've got Chris Cooper, you've got Thora Birch, Alison Janney, a Sam Mendes film, and a really well made film about just real people, and yeah, just really well made. I've only seen it the once, but yeah, it does stick with you, this one, American Beauty. Next up, another fantastic film, probably this actor's best film. We have Gladiator, obviously, with the great Russell Crowe. Probably one of the best Ridley Scott films. Joaquin Phoenix, Connie Nielsen, Derek Jacobi, the great Oliver Reed in his final performance, Djimon Hounsou, the great Richard Harris, the iconic score by Hans Zimmer. Yeah, what more can be said about Gladiator? Just a fantastic film, one of the best. Yeah, Gladiator. Next up, we have from 2002, Chicago. Fantastic musical, one of my favourite musicals. Star Renee Zellweger, Richard Gere, Catherine Zeta-Jones. You've got Queen Latifah. You've got John C. Reilly, Lucy Liu, Taye Diggs, Dominic West, one of his first performances as well. And yeah, really great story. Great musical numbers, great performances, very well directed film. Chicago. Next up, one that I've rewatched the first two, the extended cuts, in the last few years. I will get around to watching the extended cut of this film this year at some point, because it is one of the best films ever made, and that is Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, which swept the Oscars in 2003. It's a fantastic adventure film, fantasy, you name it. It's brilliant. It's just one of the best stories put to screen or even to book. Just takes you there. It really, you feel like you're there when you're watching it. It's just incredible. Yeah, again, I really need to watch this again at some point this year, the extended version, because it's a fantastic film. Next up, probably one of the most controversial wins, at least in the last 30 years. Everyone wanted it to go to Brokeback Mountain. It ended up going to this film. I think this film deserved it. I personally love this film, think it's a really well made film, and that is 2004's Crash. Obviously starring Sandra Bullock, Don Cheadle, Matt Dillon, Brendan Fraser, Ludacris, Tandy Newton, Ryan Philippe, who else is in this? Jennifer Esposito, William Fichtner, did I say Terrence Howard? No, Terrence Howard. Seeing if there's anyone else on there. That's what it says. It's a Paul Haggis film, who's also he did In the Valley of Elah, which I really enjoyed. He also did The Next 3 Days with Russell Crowe, which I thought was really good. And it's basically a look at the lives of normal people in America, living their lives, and how all their lives slowly start to intertwine. A bit like, I suppose, Magnolia in a way, but really well made, really brutal. Yeah, quite hard to watch in places, but really great film, Crash. Then we have 2006, my favourite Martin Scorsese film, with The Departed. Loved this film. Watched it again when the 4K came out last year. Had to get this imported because, as I say, it's one of my favourite Martin Scorsese films. This was the one, I'm not sure because it doesn't actually say. Did Jack Nicholson also win for this? I don't know if he did. I think he's only won 3, hasn't he? Which was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Terms of Endearment, and As Good as It Gets. He was definitely nominated though. I can't remember who won this year actually for Best Supporting Actor. You'll have to let me know in the comments if you remember. When would it have been? 2006. Yeah, I can't remember what other films were out that year, because this won Best Picture and Best Director. But a great look at the mob, corruption in the police force. You got some great characters in this. You got some great actors in this. Obviously Jack Nicholson. You got Ben Affleck. No, not Ben. Why did I say Ben Affleck? I meant to say Matt Damon. DiCaprio, Mark Wahlberg, Martin Sheen, Vera Farmiga, see who else? Ray Winston, Alec Baldwin. Music by Howard Shore. Yeah, a great film, that one. The Departed. Next up, 2008, and we have Slumdog Millionaire, Danny Boyle film. Really great film about a young man who goes on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. He's very close to winning 20 million rupees, which is a lot of money for him. And he basically tells his story of his life, from being an orphan, living on the streets, falling in love with a girl, losing that love. It's a fantastic film that blends a lot of different comedies. You've got Bollywood mixed in there, you've got comedy, romance, bit of action there, drama. Fantastic film. Probably my favourite Danny Boyle film. Definitely this is on the same level as Trainspotting 2 and Trainspotting for me. Slumdog Millionaire. Then this was 2009, this one, Best Picture, or would it have been 10? Might have been 10, it won. One of the years. The Hurt Locker. Catherine Bigelow, starring Jeremy Renner, Guy Pearce, Anthony Mackie, Brian Geraghty, Evangeline Lilly, Ralph Fiennes, David Morse. All about a bomb disposal unit in, where are they? Doesn't actually say where they are. At war. I'm going to say it's in the Middle East somewhere. And it's just about them, their lives and how they cope. And it's a really good film, really great war film. Yeah, modern war film, I should definitely say. The Hurt Locker. And then this came out in 2010, but I think it won in 2011, and that is the King's Speech one that is probably the most seen Blu-ray out and about. Very common Blu-ray, this one. A film I've seen quite a few times. Again, one that I need to watch again. It's been such a long time. But Colin Firth won Best Actor. It's an excellent film. So yeah, The King's Speech. And next up, one I haven't seen yet, but I've heard it's a great film. We have The Artist, which is a silent film. It won in 2012, obviously came out in 2011. About a silent movie star. It's a silent film, I believe, played by Jean Dujardin. I think it's a love story of sorts. I know John Goodman's in it. Who else is in it? James Cromwell, Penelope Ann Miller, Malcolm McDowell. I didn't know he was in it. Yeah, quite a few people in it. But yeah, I've not seen this one yet. So let me know if I should prioritise that one. This one, which I don't even think the director, who also is the lead actor in this one, was nominated for Best Director, but it still won Best Picture, and that's Argo, another film I really like. I rewatched this again last year. Really tense, really gritty, really great stuff. This Ben Affleck's excellent. It's really well directed. It's a really incredible story. How they did it, how they planned it, and they actually executed it. Even though, obviously, in the film, it's very, they're not going to get away. But you know, I'm not going to spoil it. But really great film, Argo. Next up, 2013, but I think it won the following Oscars year, 12 Years a Slave. Brilliant film, this one. Chiwetel Ejiofor, Michael Fassbender, Brad Pitt, Paul Giamatti, Benedict Cumberbatch, Sarah Paulson, Lupita Nyong'o, Paul Dano. Great cast. Again, music by Hans Zimmer, directed by Steve McQueen, written by John Ridley, who's a fantastic writer. And it's a really well-made film. Again, quite hard to watch because obviously of the subject matter, but really well executed and really well made film. Next up, 2015 winner, we have Birdman, one of my favourite Michael Keaton performances. He was excellent. This revitalised his career, brought him back. Really great. Obviously, it is about a has-been movie star who's going on a Broadway play, but he's kind of struggling. He's seeing himself basically as his alter ego, his superhero character he played years ago, Birdman. And yeah, it's just a really, I'd say it's sort of a dark comedy, I suppose, but yeah, I really like that, Birdman. Next up, again, Michael Keaton, Spotlight, another one, great performance from him. Mark Ruffalo, Liev Schreiber, Rachel McAdams, you got John Slattery, Stanley Tucci, and it's a fantastic film. Music by Howard Shore, all about journalists at the Boston Globe starting this investigation called Spotlight, which is about allegations of abuse within the Catholic Church and the ignorance of those in power who do nothing to stop any of it. And it's just the exposing of this, and it's just a great drama, very bordering sort of thriller, because there are thriller elements to it, because obviously I suppose it's a big conspiracy in a way, but it really happened, and yeah, really well made. Next up, another one I've not seen, and I could do a joke here, but I'm not going to. I was thinking about it, but I'll just be serious. We have Moonlight. Obviously, you know what I was going to do. I was going to hold up La La Land and then say, oh, no, Moonlight. But, no, because that's not fun. I don't find that funny. But anyway, yeah, not seen this one yet. I got this just before Christmas, so hopefully I'll give this a go soon. But I've heard it's a great watch. Then 2018, or it was winner of 2018's Best Picture award. The Shape of Water, Guillermo del Toro. Brilliant film, beautiful love story, although it's weird, wacky, exactly what Guillermo del Toro does best. Sally Hawkins is great. You got Michael Shannon, Richard Jenkins, Octavia Spencer, Doug Jones as what is it, the creature, I suppose. Michael Stuhlbarg, who's a great character actor. Yeah, great film, The Shape of Water. Winner of 2019, we have Green Book, which I really liked. Again, one that not a lot of people were happy with winning Best Picture, but I loved this film. I thought it was excellent. Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali were excellent. Again, it's more of a road film, set in the 60s. Yeah, love this film. Really good film. Green Book. Next up, one that shockingly I've still not watched, but I will try and correct that soon. 2020's winner, Parasite. I've seen about half an hour of this when it first came out, but I've not seen it all the way through, so I do need to correct that and watch it. But I've only heard good things about it. Getting towards the end now. 2021's winner, I suppose. Yeah, 2021's winner. Nomadland. Love this film. Seen it a few times now. Frances McDormand's excellent. I just love that this is more a look at the lives of a certain group of people more than anything. It could be a documentary in a way, I suppose, but it's just really well made and beautifully shot. Great film, Nomadland. Next up, one of my favourite films of the year it came out, 2022's winner of Best Picture, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Well, technically it won in 2023. 2022's winner was Coda, which I can't get, as I said. Fantastic sci-fi film. As I said, one of my favourite films of the year it came out. Michelle Yeoh, badass. Everyone in this deserved to win all the awards they did. Yeah, excellent film. And then last year's winner of Best Picture, which is one bit disappointed because I wasn't as big as on this film as everyone else, but I can still appreciate it as a great film, and that's Oppenheimer. Christopher Nolan obviously directed this one. And yeah, as I said, I thought it was a decent film. I found it interesting. I enjoyed it as it was, but it's not as good as it was made out to be. It's not. I don't think it's Best Picture material, but that's just me personally. But yeah, decent watch, Oppenheimer. So, glad that I got that under an hour, but that's going to be one of my longest videos to date, I think. Sorry about that, but just thought it'd be interesting to do a different video. That's it. As I said, let me know what ones I'm missing that you think I should get into the collection, and let me know your thoughts on any of those. Are there any of those specifically that you like more than the others? Let me know down below. If you like the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, turn your notification bell on so you know when I have a new video uploaded to the channel, comment down below anything and everything. As you know, I always get back to anyone that takes the time to leave me a comment, and that is it. So until next time everyone, take care, goodbye.